Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our May 2024 Family Month program. We, the members of the Gregory Park Circuit of Baptist churches, are delighted to be in the presence of the Lord on this platform and to present with each other. We are pleased that you, our friends, and family members have joined us this evening. So, each Wednesday evening in May, we will examine issues of significance to all our lives under the theme Living in Community, with the hope that our reflections will deepen our understanding of ourselves as a community while assisting us to meet the challenges encountered as we interact within community. This evening, we will explore the topic Living in Community, a focus on persons with disabilities. We welcome all who join us by way of the Zoom platform and the YouTube channel of the Gregory Park Baptist Church. And we specially acknowledge this evening Dr. Christine Hendricks, our presenter for this evening. My name is Asher Morgan, and I will be your moderator for tonight. Before we begin our program, we have to give God some praise. So let us mute our microphones and join in the singing of All Over the World. Please bow your heads in reverence for prayer. Good, gracious, and heavenly Father, I want to thank you for just waking us up this morning. I want to thank you that we were able to experience another day, a new day, Father God. Dear God, as we go throughout the rest of our evening, help us to be able to acquire knowledge from our presenters this evening. God, I'm asking that you help us to be kind with our words, help us to be genuine, and help us to remember to love each other, just like how much you love us. Good, gracious, and heavenly Father, Thank you for allowing us to meet here together as one big family, just as how you would want it. Thank you for everything you have done, what you're doing, and what you're going to do. Thank you for being a God that is our friend, our keeper, and our provider. In your namesake, I pray. Amen. Now we would like to invite Deacon Karen Barrett to share the announcements with us.
Good evening, brothers, sisters, friends. What a joy it is to be gathered in each other's presence. And we know that where two or three are gathered, our Savior is in our midst. We're reminded that we meet for worship service in our respective churches this Sunday for our Sunday morning worship service. So at Sydenham, we meet at 8 a.m., Gregory Park at 10 a.m., and Glade at 11 a.m. As Sister Asheray indicated, May has been celebrated as Family Month, and we meet under the theme Living in Community. As customary at the Gregory Park Baptist Church, we start our Family Month with the renewal of wedding vows. So this Sunday, May 5 at 10 a.m., all married couples are invited to share in the renewal of wedding vows at the Gregory Park Baptist Church. So that's this Sunday at 10 a.m. You're invited to share in the renewal of wedding vows. Next Wednesday, we meet for congregational prayer meeting. This evening, we remember all those who are sick or bereaved. And we remember especially this evening, Sister Tricia Smith, and we offer our condolence to her as she mourns the death of her aunt. The Thanksgiving service for the nephew of Sister Merlene Evans will be held this Saturday, May 4th at 12 noon, at the Hope Hill Baptist Church in Bull Bay. So we ask as many of us to support. That's the nephew of Sister Merlene Evans will be held this Saturday, May 4th at 12 noon at the Hope Hill Baptist Church in Bull Bay. We continue to pray for Sister Joan Burton-Leong, who will soon lay her mother to rest. Let us continue to worship God. Sister Asheray.
Thank you, Sister. At this time, we will now have a special feature. These are two representatives of the community of persons with disabilities, and they were asked to reflect on and share a challenging experience. Let us listen and let us tune in and understand exactly what they're saying.
Hello, I am Gloria Goff, and I've been blind since I was 7 years old. And a number of challenges persons who are blind face. And one of those that I vividly recall is when I was at university and the way persons, students especially, undervalued your intellectual capacity. They always felt that the grades you get were given to you out of pity or compassion by the lecturer. So I tried very hard to show them that this was not so. And I recall one particular instance when I got my grade and it was very high in comparison to some of the other students. And one student said, "No worry about she, because the lecturer is always going to give her a good grade, because I don't understand how she get more than me and she can't see." And what I had to do to dispel that myth that the lecturer would give me a different grade was by showing her my document. She compared it with what she had and discovered that I did a lot more work than she did. So that helped to dispel the myth that you did not earn your degree, you were given it. So here I am today, working very hard and using the God-given intellectual capacity to earn 2 degrees and a certificate at the University of the West Indies. and to further my studies in other ways and achieving the goals that I have achieved in life. I want to thank God for that.
Hello, I am Simone Thomas. It is truly an honor to have been asked to participate in this event. I would like to share with you one of my most challenging moments that happened in March 2018. My colleague had just left his job at one of the more popular prep schools in Ocherius. He encouraged me to apply for the job of music teacher. I was excited about this prospect. I called the principal and gleefully told her about my desire to serve at her noble institution. I expressed that I had amazing gifts and talents which could be of tremendous asset to the school. She was elated about that. But when I told her about my blindness, you could hear the uncertainty in her voice. She was not as excited as she was before. She started asking questions. How are you going to manage Simone? Or Miss Thomas? I think that was what she said. How are you going to manage Miss Thomas? I have never employed a blind teacher before. How will the teachers really react to this? How will they deal with this? I said to her, just try me. Give me a chance. She advised me to email my documents. That I did. About a week later, I called her to find out if she had perused the documents. She answered in the affirmative, and the questions started again. How will the children cope with being taught by a blind teacher? I don't know how is this going to work. I just don't know. Then she suggested that I engage the teachers in a sensitization session. I reluctantly agreed. In my mind, this doesn't make sense. But you know what? This was what I thought. If this is what it takes for me to get this job, then I'll do it. My friend accompanied me to the school. When we arrived at the school, we were greeted by some children who asked, "Is she blind? Then if she's blind, how can she walk? How can she talk? She's pretty though, but how can she walk?" My friend engaged them in a light-hearted conversation. We moved on to the room where the teachers were. The questions really flabbergasted me. The teachers asked, how will the parents feel when they see you teaching their children? How will the children react to being taught by a blind teacher? How will you find your way around? You're going to have to sensitize the children as well. I was most uncomfortable. I was appalled. I left, hoping though that good sense would have prevailed. I was hoping that they would have really thought through it and give me a chance. My people, the principal did not call me. Nobody called me from the school. I felt rejected. I felt deflated. I felt defeated. How could this be? I asked God. I had my heart set on this job. I must tell you, people, also that my friend who had encouraged me to apply for the job, he also came to the school that day and tried to persuade them to just open their hearts and let me in. But that did not help my cause. I could not understand how could they not see beyond my blindness. Why could why would they have overlooked me? It just did not make sense. Then I realized how prevalent discrimination against persons with disabilities was and has been over the years. That moment has stood out in my mind because I had not experienced anything like that before. Yes, I was rejected by other schools, but the questions that were asked by the teachers and the children, it's as though they see blindness as being tantamount to being helpless. They see blind people as zombies. Some of them see us as blind persons that have no purpose, no use. It was disheartening, but God comforted me and gave me his peace after a while. I thank you for listening to me. Blessings.
Wow, wow, wow. We are truly blessed and challenged by the reflection shared by Miss Gloria Gold and Miss Simone Thomas. And we pray that God will continue to be their source of strength and their guide as they continue to navigate ongoing challenges. At this time, I would like to introduce our presenter for this evening, and that is Dr. Christine Hendricks. She's a passionate advocate for the education and empowerment of persons with disabilities. Christine Hendricks is the current executive director of the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, JCBD, which was established as a statutory body with the Disabilities Act, which came into effect on February 14th, 2022. With extensive local and international experience, Dr. Hendricks has been a vibrant speaker and presenter at workshops and seminars dealing with various aspects of disability. As a member of the community of persons with disabilities, she has lent her considerable expertise and experience to the advisory, advisory and management boards on disabilities and the Abilities Foundation as a board member. She has also served on several working groups and committees, including the Task Force on Disability Subsector Plan and the Task Force on Social and Vulnerable Groups, both part of Jamaica's Vision 2030. Her commitment to enhancing the total well-being of Jamaica's children is rooted in the church and focuses on the essential ingredients for a good society. Good parenting and healthy marriages. Married for 29 years, qualified teacher and counselor, she holds a doctoral degree in transformational leadership with a focus on cultural transformation and a master's in counseling psychology. We now ask for Dr. Christine Hendricks to give her presentation.
Thank you so much, Asheray, and good evening, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here this evening to share with you in your family month. It is really my honor, and I want to say thanks to Mrs. Henlin, who was responsible for having me here. So let me place my presentation on the screen so that we can have this conversation. So tonight, I will be presenting to you the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, briefly where we're coming from and where we are now. And so I think afterwards you will have the opportunity to pose some questions. So the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities celebrated 50 years in name last year, July. In that the organization has been in existence since 1973, coming out of a policy paper that was crafted by the government seeking to determine the needs of persons with disabilities. However, although we're celebrating 50 years, or we celebrated 50 years last year, as a new organization, we're just 2 years old. And we're 2 years old because after 50 years, the Disabilities Act came into effect in February 2022, which then established the organization as a statutory body, or the Act says as a body corporate. Hence, although, as I indicated, we have been around for a very long time, we are just 2 years old.
Just checking at this point if you are sharing screen.
Oh, I think I am. You're not seeing?
Not seeing the presentation as yet.
Oh, okay. Let me see what is happening. Let me go back to it. So share. Are you seeing it now?
Yes, you just put it in the presentation mode. Great.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So but you heard me though. Was I heard any at all before?
Yes, we heard you. Yes, we heard you.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. All right. So I indicated earlier that although we are 50, we celebrated 50 years as in existence in terms of the name, in terms of the JCPD being around in Jamaica. However, the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities was established and started as a statutory body in 2022. And so currently, we are building out the organization to facilitate the rights of persons with disabilities. So the Disabilities Act, which establishes the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, was passed in the Parliament in 2014. And it came into being after many years of deliberations and draftings of this document to promote and protect the rights of persons with disabilities, to ensure that they have equal enjoyment to everything that life has to offer, different privileges that they may have that others might not have, interests that would benefit them as individuals, benefits and treatments on an equal basis with others. And I said particular privileges and benefits because persons with disabilities may need many things that other persons without disabilities might not require for their life and to enable them to enjoy life on an equal basis with others. And so there are certain privileges and certain benefits and certain treatments that might seem unequal, but it is necessary to enable them to get up to the level to enjoy and be included in society as everyone else. So the reason the Act exists, which is the objects of the Act, is to reinforce and promote the recognition and acceptance within Jamaica that a person with a disability has the same fundamental rights as any other person in Jamaica. Now, it might seem strange that, there has to be legislation to help persons to recognize that a person with a disability is actually a person. But if you think of it and think of how persons with disabilities are viewed, how they're seen, how they're treated, then you will understand the reason this act is necessary. The act is also necessary to promote individual dignity and autonomy, to help us to understand that people with disabilities have dignity and they should be allowed to make choice. They should have that freedom of choice and they should have independence as everyone else in society. To ensure that they are able to fully and effectively participate and be included in society on an equal basis with others. The Act also exists to prevent or prohibit discrimination against persons with disabilities and to promote their difference and respect for that difference and acceptance by our society that a disability is simply part of human diversity and humanity. Now, no two people are the same. And so persons with disabilities is part of the creativity and the diversity that is created and part of creation in our world and here in Jamaica as well. And so for those reasons, the Act exists. I indicated earlier that the Act establishes the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities. So before now, it was a department within the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, but now it is a body corporate according to the Interpretation Act, Section 28 of that Act, which applies to us as a body corporate or a statutory body. No, there are certain functions that the JCPD now has to carry out to ensure that persons with disabilities are not discriminated against and they can participate and be included in society. So, first of all, it advises the minister on matters pertaining to persons with disabilities to ensure that there are effective measures. Effective measures are put in place to prevent disabilities or the circumstances which cause disabilities. Secondly, the rehabilitation of persons with disabilities. That is what does it mean for persons with disabilities to be rehabilitated and to enjoy life and to be included and participate as everyone else. Also, to advise the minister on effective measures to ensure that there is public education concerning disabilities and the improvement of living conditions of persons with disabilities by facilitating their social and economic development. The council also advises the minister on different trends. What is happening with disabilities elsewhere in the world? What policies and programs are to be in place to ensure that persons with disabilities can participate and be included in society? What is happening in terms of service provision and service delivery across the world that we should adopt to ensure that persons with disabilities have the best of what there is to offer? The council is also responsible to monitor how we apply those trends and policies and report those results to the minister. We're also to conduct public education programs about these acts, like what I'm doing now, and ensure that society understands their what the act requires and their responsibilities under it. Also, the act is also there to help persons with disabilities themselves to know what the act says, what is required for them, and what is their responsibilities as well. Because although the act speaks to the fact that persons with disabilities have rights, they also have responsibilities. The JCPD, shortened form for the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, is also responsible to prepare codes of practice to ensure that the society learns how to avoid discrimination against persons with disabilities. So we prepare those codes of practice, and currently the previous department, JCPD, prepared them in advance for the current JCPD, and now we are reviewing those codes with a view to place them in the Houses of Parliament for acceptance, and then they will be made public. So we have three codes of practices in draft. We have one for education and training, code of practice that guides schools and all educational facilities and stakeholders on how to include persons with disabilities in education and training. We just finished reviewing that, and we're finalizing that process to present it to the next level for review and then final approval at the Houses of Parliament. We also have the codes of practice for employment. Now, that is the second code that the JCPD will reviewing this year and going through the same process, ensuring that employers from various aspects of society understand that they should not discriminate against a person with disability who is qualified for a job, but they should, have that opportunity. I heard earlier, one of our presenters speaking or sharing her experience about employment. And this code and the Disabilities Act is one which will guide or one which holds employers responsible for discriminating against a person who has a disability. And so these codes of practice will help society, help employers, help our schools or educators or parents or students or persons with disabilities to know what to do. And the third code that we have in draft is the code on health care and health facilities. And so very soon these codes will be out and available for the public. In the meantime, though, we hold consultations with stakeholders, and the church is part of those consultations. And so for the upcoming one on employment, we're looking forward to having Gregory Park and other Baptist churches there as part of the stakeholdership to hear what these codes say, to see if there are any gaps or anything that may have, would need to be included that may not have been included, or anything that was included but has already happened. And so there will be other codes as we move along to help our society to better understand how to include persons with disabilities. So the council not only advises the minister, but it can also make requests of the minister in terms of how to enforce this act. So the JCPD, upon review, can look to see what are the gaps, what are the challenges that our society is having, and recommend measures to avoid discrimination against persons with disabilities. We can also advocate to ensure that policies and programs of the government consider persons with disabilities and ensure that whatever plan is being put in place, persons with disabilities are part of those plans or considered for inclusion in those plans. We can also, as the council, make recommendations or give advice to any minister in relation to any aspect of this act or propose amendment to this act. And what I need to interject here is that this year is the year when we begin the review of the Disabilities Act. So we will look at it to see if it has been meeting its needs or has been meeting its mandate, and see what needs to be added, what needs to be removed, what needs to be clarified. And so that also will go through a process of consultation, which I'm hoping that persons on this platform will also have the opportunity to participate. So the JCPD can also give recommendation or advice to any government agency as to how this act is to be applied within their organization or any other law in relation to any other law as it relates to persons with disabilities. The council can also undertake or arrange for or support research, whether financially or otherwise, or provide advice or provide information to facilitate such research. With the approval of the minister, we can begin to charge for services that we offer or facilities that we have. Of course, those would have to be approved by the minister with responsibility as named in the act. The JCPD can also arrange for authorized persons to enter upon any premises other than a dwelling house to carry out an inspection to ensure that persons are compliant with the Disabilities Act. And so premises like a church, a business place, any public building or any public space that other persons have access to ensure that persons with disabilities have access to those places as well. As we carry out our functions as the council, we consult with the disability sector partners and other critical stakeholders. And that is part of the reason we do, as I indicated, when we're doing our drafting our codes and reviewing our codes, we consult. We do a lot of consultation to ensure that we take into consideration the views of persons with disabilities and other stakeholders who would be impacted by those programs or policies or legislation for that matter. The council is managed or overseen or governed by a board of management. And the board of management is responsible to determine the policy and the general administration of the affairs of the council. I did indicate before that we prepare codes of practice, and we spoke quite a bit on that. In terms of registration, the council is responsible to have a confidential register. And this confidential register, having this confidential register will allow for persons with disabilities to register. So a person with a disability who desires that his name be in the register, or the caregiver of the person desires that the name of the person with the disabilities be part of the register, can participate in our registration process. There is an application, and there are prescribed ways or particular ways in which this registration must take place. And so persons who are so interested can be guided by our registration process. We have regulations, that governs the Disabilities Act. And just briefly, I will indicate that the regulations cover 4 areas that the Act speaks to. It covers the registration of a person with a disability. It speaks to the issuance and the revocation of the certificate of registration. And the certificate of registration is what a person with a disability would receive upon the completion of the registration process. It speaks to the maintenance of our confidential registry. And it also speaks to how a lessee can apply to a lessor regarding retrofitting of housing. So application of lessee and the response of the lessor regarding housing. The Act also establishes a Disabilities Rights Tribunal. And this Disabilities Rights Tribunal is made up of three members: chairman or a deputy chairman, a disability expert, and a professional, depending on what matter the person with the disability has reported or complained to the JCPD about. The Disabilities Rights Tribunal would pull on one of those professionals to sit in its hearing, and whatever decision the tribunal comes up with after hearing those matters, the decision is final. However, persons with disabilities would not go straight to the tribunal to report a matter of discrimination. The person with the disability would make their complaint in writing to the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, or whether in writing or we have a complaints form that has been developed. Persons can use either of those, make the complaint to the council. The council will investigate the matter. If it is a matter that can be resolved through mediation, then that occurs. Or if the party determine that mediation will not help, then the matter is referred to the Disabilities Rights Tribunal. So it's like a little court. So persons with disabilities matters can be heard, matters of discrimination, that is. So the Act, as I said, it speaks to the fact that they make the complaint, and the complaints, an aggrieved person with a disability may make a complaint for reasons such as discrimination, failure by what we call the respondent in the complaint to comply with the code of practice prepared in accordance with Section 9. For example, if it is that a person with a disability, let me go back to Simone, who shared earlier. If it is that Simone wanted to lodge a complaint or make a complaint, she could make a complaint in terms of the section of the Act that speaks to the right to employment and the fact that she feels discriminated against. Thirdly, if it is that an organization fails or refuses to offer any benefit or any membership to a person with a disability, according to certain subsections in the Act, section 41, subsection 1, or subsection 2, if it is that persons with disabilities are refused benefits, or there is an organization that fails to offer a particular benefit or membership, just because the person has a disability, then that too can be considered discrimination and a complaint can be made about that. And fourthly, any other matter that the Act speaks to that persons in the society goes against or contravenes any provision that is made in the Act. If they go against it, a complaint can be made against them. Now you may wonder, so persons complain to the council. What will happen if it is that people feel or believe that the council has discriminated against them? Well, the Act provides that persons can make a complaint against the council to the public defender. And so there is a balance to ensure that we too ensure that we treat persons with disabilities with the rights that should be accorded to them. Now, the rights that the Act speaks to, Part 4, overall, overarching, protection from discrimination, because that is what this Act is about, to protect people with disabilities from discrimination and to allow them to participate and be included in all aspects of life. And that is what this Act is here to ensure, that any enjoyment of privileges, any interest, any benefits, any treatment, regardless of what, in whatever format, is discriminatory, persons with disabilities are protected from it. So it's not only if it is that someone says something or refuses the person with a disability, but if through a contract or a licensing or any other arrangement, persons with disabilities are discriminated against, then this Act is there to protect persons with disabilities. I spoke to the fact that people with disabilities, Part 5, speaks to education and training. So an educational or training institution shall not deny a person with a disability from being enrolled at or attending the institution by reason of their disability. In terms of employment, an employer shall not discriminate against a person with a disability who is otherwise qualified for employment. And in terms of political office and public life, a person with a disability should have the opportunity, as everyone else, to vote, to be elected to political office, to perform public functions, to be a part of boards and other public bodies, and to be involved in any activity or the administration of a political party of their choice. I spoke to healthcare, the right to healthcare and facilities, and it speaks to the fact that persons with disabilities should get healthcare on an equal basis as others, and the facilities of healthcare needs to be accessible to persons with disabilities. In terms of premises and housing, it speaks to the environment and what exists, how it is that persons are allowed to enter in. How is it that persons with disabilities are allowed to access information? How is it that persons with disabilities can access benefits? And so premises and housing speaks to the broad area of access to buildings, but also access to information and access to benefits. And Part 9, sorry, I have premises and housing again. It is transportation, public passenger vehicles, the right to public passenger vehicles. And so persons with disabilities here on the platform and other persons who are listening tonight, it is my hope that persons with disabilities with whom you come in contact, or even if it is just in passing, you ensure that these persons are guaranteed their rights in all these areas. Thank you so very much.
Wow, what an awesome presentation. Thank you so very much, Dr. Christine Hendricks. Now, we would like to have a question and answer segment. So I'm inviting any questions or comments from the audience on Zoom or YouTube in the chat, or persons may even unmute their microphones to speak.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Anyone can hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm
we can.
able to hear
Go
you.
ahead.
Oh, good evening, Doc. This is Jacqueline Bennett. I did
Good
my
evening.
practicum there. I don't know if you remember. Hello?
Yes, I'm not remembering now
No,
because I'm not
because,
seeing a face.
oh no, I have the same name with one of your staff members,
Yes,
Jacqueline
right.
Bennett.
I know. Yes.
So it was a joke. It was like a running joke in the office. But I just want to
Yes.
say thank you very much for facilitating and for the wonderful accommodating staff that you have. So
You're
yes,
welcome.
I learned a lot and I had a good time. So I just want to say thank you again.
And thank you for coming in and being part of the JCPD through your practicum. What I have learned over the years is that persons who come, they never leave the same. You know, they become champions of disability wherever they go. So I trust that that is true of you too, and you will keep flying the flag of the JCPD and persons with disabilities, ensuring that they are accorded their rights as everyone else in society. You continue to uphold that. Thank you so much.
Yes, Miss. Thank you too.
All right.
Feel
Any other
free to
questions?
ask any more questions. We're also inviting the persons on our YouTube platform as well. If they have any questions, you can definitely ask Dr. Christine Hendricks. She's well informed.
Thank you, Dr. Hendricks, for an informative presentation. Really opened, I'm sure, our eyes to a lot. My question is, are there specific requirements for persons to be registered with the JCPD? In terms of disabilities, is it just physical disabilities or mental disabilities? What are the requirements for registration?
All right. So the Disabilities Act defines a person with a disability as a person who has a physical, intellectual, mental, or sensory impairment that prevents or hinders their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. And so we cover all disability groups. So physical is just the broad umbrella name, because under physical you have varying kinds of disabilities. You have cerebral palsy, you have persons with varying spinal cord injury, you have persons who have amputated whether a leg or an arm or both, persons with varying upper or lower limb loss or um, impairment, any impairment of any form. Then you have those persons with intellectual disabilities, and intellectual disabilities speaks to persons whose IQ are lower than the average person. And so those person would take longer to learn, although they will and can learn. They take longer, they learn differently. They have to learn particular social skills to enable them to maneuver society. And in all these disabilities, you have varying ranges from mild to moderate to severe or profound. So, whichever the disabilities you hear me describing, not everyone would be the same. And so I want everyone on the platform to just be aware of that. So these persons with intellectual disabilities, sometimes persons call them slow, but you have persons who are slow learners who are not necessarily persons who are having intellectual disabilities, because you have some persons who their development in varying areas might be slow, but they pick up after a while. And so a person with an intellectual disability would not go beyond maybe say a grade 6 level or less. And so they would not necessarily pass uh, not common entrance. GSAT, what do we have now? PEP or CXCs, they would not do those usually. Those are the persons with intellectual disabilities. And an intellectual disabilities is usually diagnosed at birth. So anywhere between birth to 18 years, intellectual disabilities can be diagnosed. If it is that a person reverts to slow development after age 18, that would mean that the individual would have a brain dysfunction or something happened with the brain that would help allow the person to be reverting, but it would not be termed intellectual disability. Then you have those with mental disabilities, and that ranges from learning disabilities to psychological disorders or psychiatric disorders, or impairments, or psychosocial impairments, as the new term is now. And so those persons can have bipolar disorder, severe depression, things like those, mental disabilities. Or for the learning disabilities, you have children who are dyslexic, children who have challenges learning math, and varying kinds of learning disabilities. Then you have persons with sensory impairments, and these either have to do with the vision or the hearing. And so those are the range of disabilities that the JCPD deals with. In terms of registration, there is an application form that all individuals, based on our regulations, they have to apply to be registered and for their names to enter into the confidential registry. So we have persons who are registered with us now. However, once we open up the new process, all persons will have to apply if they want their names in the confidential registry. There is also an eligibility form or a medical report form that individuals who are applying must complete. Those are the new applicants now. So they would have to complete the medical report form to validate or to verify what their disability is. So they would have to go to the particular medical professional who deals with that particular disability to complete that form. So we do have general practitioners who can complete for physical disabilities. However, for the other disabilities, intellectual disabilities, it's a clinical psychologist or who has to complete that form. For the person who is deaf or hard of hearing, it's the ophthalmologist. And for the person with visual impairments, it's the ophthalmologist. Ophthalmologist, audiologist. Did I say ophthalmologist for hearing? It's audiologist, right? And ophthalmology for the vision.
A question here for our YouTube channel, Dr. Hendricks. You spoke of a revocation of disability certificate. What would
Yes.
necessitate that?
So if it is that an individual is registered with the council and it is discovered that the registration was falsely done, and the information is incorrect that was completed by the medical professional, that certificate can be revoked. Or if it is that a person had a disability, but by some miracle or some other means, technology and all the things that are happening now, the person no longer has the disability, then that certificate can be revoked, which means it can be withdrawn from the individual, so they are no longer part of our registry.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, can the JCDP assist someone to get a prosthetic leg?
So remember I indicated at at the outset that the JCPD is currently building out its new program fully. So last year we had an arrangement or an agreement with the Ministry of Health and through our assistive aid program to facilitate persons with disabilities who require prosthesis. However, at this juncture, we're seeking to honor, for this financial year, we're seeking to honor those applications. So currently, the JCPD's applications are fully booked. We have quite a number of applications that persons have made for assistive aids and other grants that we facilitated that we are seeking to clear so that those persons can benefit. And in the meantime, we're expanding our program for greater and better benefits to ensure that what we offer, that is what persons with disabilities need. Because recall, I indicated that as an organization, the name JCPD has been around for 50 years. And so we're at a good time to review our programs and to determine what persons needed, whether what persons needed over these 50 years remain the same or things have changed. And so we're at that juncture. The council will have, as part of its structure, a rehabilitation, transition, and social services branch, which will facilitate those. However, as I indicated for this year, we're seeking to honor those requests from over the years of persons have applied for and have not received. So we're honoring those, so we're not accepting any new applications at this time. I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you. I hope you would have said we will take a few more, but thank you very much.
We are not able to. We are way oversubscribed.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Two more questions in the chat, Dr. Hendricks. What are the advantages of being registered with the JCPD?
Okay, so being registered with the JCPD has its advantages. As I indicated, there are benefits that will be in the new organization for persons to apply for. And also, there are some organizations that provide particular benefits if persons are registered. For example, Digicel offers a reduction in the cost of credit to persons who are blind or deaf, if it is that they are registered with the JCPD. You have the National Housing Trust that facilitate benefits as well to persons with disabilities, but they have to be registered with the JCPD. So 5% of all NHT housing schemes are reserved for persons with disabilities once they are able to pay their mortgages, or on behalf of the person with the disability, the caregivers or the parents. Well, we caregivers for us covers parents and other persons who have responsibility for persons with disabilities. So they can apply to the National Housing Trust, but the person with the disability must be registered with the JCPD. There is also the income tax exemption out of the Income Tax Act that persons can benefit if they're over the threshold and they meet the particular criteria that they can benefit from an exemption of income tax. So there are quite a number of benefits that the council has, and being registered gives you that advantage. Additionally, we have parking stickers. We know that there are varying, from time to time, parents or the people with disabilities themselves, the caregivers, taking their child or guardian, their guard out with disabilities, and they need to park in those special parking spaces. The JCPD, once you're registered, you can get that parking sticker to enable you to park without being towed away in those parking zones. And as time progresses, there will be more, programs and benefits rolling out that persons will be made aware of.
Thank you. The other
You're
question.
welcome.
If an institution such as a school or church is inaccessible to a person living with a disability and do not have the resources to make them accessible, are there organizations they can get financial assistance to make their institution accessible?
Well, if it is a school, then the Ministry of Education um, would have to facilitate that support to enable the school to be more accessible. One thing I know though is that currently, or in short order, there is a project that will be facilitated through the National Education Trust, Food for the Poor, and the JCPD to facilitate um, greater access in educational institutions. And so hopefully this will be one of them. But of course, you would understand and appreciate that not all institutions can be done at the same time. And so there will be rolling out a phased approach. I believe also that for this Labor Day coming up, the varying ministries are focusing on accessibility. So support could be right at your door. So there is support that is available if it is that such schools are really in need. In terms of church, it is a private space, and the it is something that the institution would have to discuss with the JCPD. I can't commit at this point because we would not have the resources this financial year to facilitate, but it is something that could be discussed and guidance provided as to where that support can be made available.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hendricks.
Any other question? Or if not, then
There was one question in the chat, but I'm not completely sure if it was answered. And that was, if an institution such as a school or church is inaccessible to a
yes, I
person.
did answer that. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Dr. Hendricks.
You are
Excellent,
most welcome.
excellent presentation. And you are well informed. Keep up the good work. At this time, we
Thank you so much.
invite Sister Althea Levy to come with the closing comments, the prayer, and the benediction.
Thank you, Sister Ashery. Good evening, brothers, sisters, guests, friends. What a rich and informative session this has been. I pray that as we all leave this space, that we will endeavor to do more for the disabled in our community, as we continue to live as Jehovah God has commanded us so to do. Our Christian life, indeed, our Christian journey, calls us to include the others, which we hear from the pulpit very often. So we are reminded today to do so. The others are the unloved, the rejected, the disabled, who we may think of as invisible or that they do not match up, as we heard about that from a testimonial from Miss Gloria Goff. From Miss Thomas, we heard about her experience with school administration and staff who saw her disability as a distraction. But thank God that these two women persevered amidst the discrimination. Yes, a very hard word, discrimination. When we are at the end of it, we are incensed, but at times we become guilty of it in our interaction with the disabled. So let us see them as they are, humans, made in God's likeness. So let us exercise compassion and include them always. Tonight, friends, we acknowledge the work of the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disability. 50 years, even though they are only two. Its executive director, Dr. Christine Hendricks, the other members of staff, and the work they continue to do in speaking out and giving a voice and generally enabling seamless assistance and interaction to and for the disabled through the Disabilities Act. We acknowledge also Ms. Goff and Ms. Thomas for their sharing of their challenges. We acknowledge our regular attendees, those local and overseas visitors who join us weekly via this medium and say come back and join us for the remaining Wednesdays of the month of May for topics of interest as we celebrate under the theme, living in community, building character, molding lives. I hope that after this presentation that we will do more for the disabled and to be a little more compassionate and to be a little more inclusive. Let us pray. Most righteous and holy God, we adore you and exalt your name, the name that is above all else. We honor you, O God, and with our gifts and talents, we give you worship. We praise the works of your mighty hand and give you thanks for your abundant provisions daily. We thank you for this platform that has become the new dissemination medium by which your word continues to reach your people. Your word which brings joy and peace to our lives. Tonight, we lift up the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disability. its executive director, who gave such an informative presentation, the other members of staff, those who shared testimonials and asked questions. We thank you also for those too shy to speak and pray that they will do so given another opportunity. Father, may we know as the church community recognize that the serving of the disabled is an area that is not congested or closed off, and that there is an opening for each of us. We thank you for the work of the Family Life Ministry, its director and team, as they bring to our focus matters that we might have otherwise overlooked, but so relevant in this time, and the many ways we are called to serve. We thank you also for our pastor and the leverage that he gives for us to seek and serve. Thank you for all the persons behind each device, Lord, brothers, sisters, guests, friends who join us weekly. And as we prepare to leave this setting, may we all be guided by the great commission of Jesus to go into the world and preach the gospel to all creature, every being. And in our going, may we not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but to fear God and be our brother's keeper. Hear these words we offer in prayer to you tonight, through Jesus Christ the Lord. Amen. And we lift our hands for the benediction. May the Lord bless you and take care of you. May the Lord be kind and gracious to you. May the Lord look on you with favor and give you peace, now and always. Amen.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this meeting. Thank you for being a part of this presentation. Thank you for all the persons who joined on our YouTube platform. I'm wishing everyone a good night and stay safe.